Hello, welcome to the next episode of In Bed with the UnWed. I am Marie Carmel, founder of the UnWed, and today we have Ryan Ellsworth with us on the In Bed. Ryan, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Good.
Yes.
Welcome, Ryan. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks for having me. My name's Ryan Ellsworth. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah currently, and been divorced for a year now, separated a year before that, so it's all kind of fresh and new.
Totally.
2 kids, a 16 and 12-year-old.
Okay, boys, girls?
Girls the oldest, the boys the youngest, and
Okay.
I have 50% custody of them, have them every other week.
Okay, yeah. So, Ryan's here today because our topic for this In Bed is 4 tips to help you survive that first year of divorce. So, Ryan is a little bit over a year, so he's a pro, and which is great because first I love the male perspective, and I also love that he is, kind of fresh still, and even though he's right out of a year, he's still in the thick of it.
Yeah.
So that's great. So, to get started, we have 4 tips today to help you survive that first year. Tip number 1 is grieve it out. Ryan, how have you grieved it out?
So there's probably a right way and a wrong way. There's probably 1,000 ways.
So
to
which
do
one are
it.
you going to tell us?
The wrong way.
Okay, Ryan's got
For
the
sure.
I'll tell you the right way. Okay.
All right, perfect.
Go.
I turned to alcohol.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a big drinker before my divorce.
Really?
In fact, for years I didn't drink at all. And then all of it started coming, and then I used it as kind of an escape.
Yeah.
And
Do you feel like, was it friends that helped you turn to alcohol, or was it like kind of a natural, you just used that because it was easy and accessible?
it was a natural thing at first,
Okay.
for sure. It's
Yeah.
just like, well, I might as well try this to see if I can help myself feel better and forget what's going on here. And then the friends definitely became an activity with us.
Okay.
So
How were you emotionally?
I was a wreck.
Okay.
My family and my close friends will comment that I was kind of the girl of the relationship as far as being overly emotional.
Okay.
My heart was broken.
Mm.
I didn't know what to do with myself. I was one of these guys who got married for life. This is as we all do, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I saw no other way this life was going to go. It was a fun marriage. We had a good time. We loved each other. There's no doubt about that. And I was excited to grow old. And so when that rug was pulled out from under me, my poor decision was to turn to alcohol.
Well, because I think too, a lot of times, we don't have the tools to figure out how to cope with issues during our marriage, so we definitely don't have the tools to figure out how to recover from that, right? Like a devastating thing like that. So I know for me, I've been divorced 6 years now, but that first year, I remember especially the first month, I would cry myself to sleep every night. I don't like crying. For those of you that know me know that me crying is a big deal. And I was a disaster. And I had to pretend that I was okay for my kids during the day, and then I would crumble at night when I finally could take off that mask and be myself and kind of process those feelings that were coming through.
Yeah.
And that was hard.
Yeah.
It was awful.
For the male perspective, I can talk. The way it happened for me is I tried to stay strong and be this, put up this facade that I was all right.
Totally.
And it was weird because twice I just completely broke down and sobbed. It was ugly cry.
Yeah.
So glad nobody's around me for a half hour. Just what the hell is going on?
All consuming. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I get that.
Ugly cry.
Yeah. You guys cry too, see?
Wow.
Well, okay, so then I think something you hear about a lot for the first year is the divorce diet. So I don't know about you, but I lost 15 pounds so I couldn't eat. I had so much anxiety in the pit of my stomach that any thought of food, I just couldn't eat. And it was, not healthy, but it was, yeah.
So I know that diet. So
It can go either way.
It has for me.
The divorce diet
Yes.
is either or. Yeah.
So we first got separated and planned on getting divorced.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just devastated, and I lost 40 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
just like, in a month or something like that. And I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we tried to get back together,
Mm-hmm.
and we lived back together again for about a year,
Mm-hmm.
and it fell apart again.
Yeah.
And this time, I put that 40 pounds back on, and then plus some more. So it's been awesome. Yeah.
Okay, so we're disasters when we leave it out. Okay, so we obviously all go through the disaster phase, but the grieving period doesn't have to be just a mess. I mean, you do get like a 1 year pass to be a hot mess express for that first year, right? Like we all go through it. But for me, once I could get through the acute emotional part and start to have periods where I felt normal or felt stronger again, that was when I was able to finally start looking at my issues. And I really think it's really a process that lasts even longer than that first year. But tips to help you get through that disaster grieving phase. At first I didn't have money for therapists. I didn't have, hundreds of dollars to be throwing at. I did have one therapist that I went to occasionally that really helped. But for me, the most part, I read books, I meditated. I'm not very good at meditating, but I did do it some. But even just the words or starting to hear language that I had never really heard before really helped me. And I read a book, I think, or I don't know where this came from. I could totally be making this up, but it was along the lines of, it really doesn't matter. You could be going to a therapist for years, you could be reading all these books, and until you're really ready to hear that message, it doesn't matter where it comes from. Yeah. And so while I think therapists are priceless and necessary, you can also don't feel like you have to have a therapist because they are expensive and it takes resources. You can read books, there are other avenues that you can get similar material.
I agree. Podcasts are another great
Absolutely.
route.
Yeah.
But so I did the therapy thing for a
Yeah.
while, and it was awesome. She was great.
Mm-hmm.
But as you say that, you're right. I wasn't ready for some of the things she was throwing at me.
But I think probably it planted seeds,
mm-hmm.
right?
Oh, yeah,
so those
sure.
things you heard maybe a year from now, you'll be like, oh, remember that one time they told me I shouldn't do that? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest takeaway from that Grieve It Out is just realize that grieving is part of the process, and you're going to be a disaster for a while, and that's okay.
It is okay.
And some of us turn to alcohol, some of us turn to food, or we turn to other partners. Like a lot of us have different ways of expressing that, but the more you can, as awful as it is, sit in that and let it flow through you and try to look at it and figure out where that's coming from. I mean, that's the only way to help get through it.
Right.
Ultimately.
It is. Sit in the pain, as they say.
Right. Because alcohol's nice and it numbs and
mm-hmm.
it makes you feel fine for a while, but then eventually you have an upper and then you have a downer.
Yep.
Which is most things that we numb with.
Right. For sure.
So not to pick on your
Yeah.
alcohol, but
No,
that's what we do, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So now that we've established that we're hot messes, the second tip is after divorce, during that first year, and then progressing, but that is a time to really get to know yourself again. Because I don't know about you, I came out of my divorce and I had absolutely no idea who I was.
Exactly the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I learned through therapy
Mm-hmm.
that I was a people pleaser, and I didn't care what we did as long as you were happy. Right? We'll go do this, we'll go do that, and I'm sure it drove my ex crazy.
And even if you weren't happy.
Yeah, even if I weren't happy.
Yeah.
I was just along for the ride, and I didn't want to be a problem, and I just went, So
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea who I was, what I liked. There's
Totally.
a couple little things I knew. This is what I do. This is fun, but as far as what I want to do and who I am, and I don't know. Yeah, it's tough. It's super tough, and it's fun though, discovering it.
That is for sure, and we're going to talk about that. But you could have asked me simple things like my favorite food, my favorite restaurant, what type of music I would listen to, what was my favorite movie, and I wouldn't have had an answer. I was like, well, what do you like?
Yeah.
Well, where do you want to eat? And I feel like I was actually okay. Like I just didn't have any opinions, so I was fine with whatever
Right.
anyone else wanted. I was
Yeah.
like, it's fine, I don't care. But I mean, I was such a feather wallowing,
Mhm.
like I could be blown any direction.
Right.
And I remember even growing up, I always thought that was a good thing. That I could talk to anyone, I could fit in. Everyone likes Marie, you know. And
Right.
I actually don't think that's until you have someone that hates you, like you're not doing things right,
Right.
right? Because like I have opinions,
Right.
and it's okay.
Yeah. It is okay, but you grow up that way, and you think this is how I gotta be, and then I want people to like me.
Yeah.
I want to be the good nice guy at the party and
Totally.
be somebody anyway.
Yeah.
But yes, you can have your own opinions.
Okay,
and
so
you
what
can.
have you done to find Ryan?
I'm still working on that. I love sports. I love playing sports, and it's been difficult because of my weight gain and
Mhm.
I have bad knees. I can't play soccer anymore. I don't climb as much as I used to because,
Getting
quite honestly, yeah,
blows.
yeah, getting up that rock, being this heavy,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
hard.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I'm not a big heights. I don't
Ah.
mind heights, but like climbing up a rock for height stresses me. So
Yeah, we
Yeah.
all have our thing.
yeah.
I started to get into yard work. I
Mm.
think I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Next year, I think I'm going to start a garden.
Good.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's unless you start doing things that you think you might.
Yeah.
But we don't know. A lot of us have no idea even where to begin,
Right.
and you just have to try things. But the beauty of starting over again, as many dark areas as it has, is that it also really is a chance for you to redefine who you are.
Right.
And I discovered that I actually liked working out during my marriage. I felt like I worked out for my husband because he wanted that,
Right.
and it was just a chore I did, and it wasn't something I did for me. Where I went to after my marriage, I went to a completely different type of working out, and that was always for me.
Right.
And I protect that now. Like I don't let boyfriends or people come. Like that's my thing,
Nice.
you know. And I enjoy reading at night, and I enjoy there's lots of little things that I have opinions now. Like if you ask me what my favorite food is, I could tell you that it's cinnamon rolls, guys. You know, and there are places I don't like to go, and there are things I don't like to do, and that's something that I sadly had to discover
Yeah.
through that whole,
Right.
you know. And it's an ongoing process. Like it's not. You don't just get through the first year and you're like, oh, I know everything, but just ask me, you know.
I wish it were that easy, but
Right.
yeah. Right.
Yeah, but figuring out things that now you enjoy, what are you passionate about, you know, what are your talents, what are your strengths, that's all something that
Right.
now you get to discover.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
I get to travel places that I couldn't before,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome.
So we have now grieved, figured out that. We're going to figure out the shit that we need to do for ourselves.
Right.
Third tip is to find friends and support. So I don't know about you, but my first year I really didn't have any single friends. It was a long time ago, and so I had none of my girlfriends I have now. There was no UnWed. And they had all married friends who were it just changes. Like I'm still friends with most of them, but it's just not the same. I feel like sadly when you have gone from marriage to now you're single, those relationships change. And I had no one that really related to what I was going through. I mean, I had a group of gay boys who I absolutely love that I hung out with for my first year. That was my core group of friends. And they were just what I needed.
Right.
But I think having that support group, which is part of the reason for making the UnWed, because I didn't have that, is so vital.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So I do have a really good group of friends. We were high school friends,
Mm-hmm.
which is I think a little more rare these days. But
Mhm.
we went to
Yeah.
high school together. We love each other. We have a good time together. It did mix in with the alcohol a little too much because 3 of us were going through divorces at the same time, so we all found that misery
You
together.
did. That's great,
But they've been great, and we've added some more friends who are going through the same thing.
Mhm.
And I'm going to a Friendsgiving after this, and
Aw.
we're just gonna have a good time and
Yeah.
enjoy and have that support group. But we all know what we're going through.
Mhm.
We can have fun and laugh and talk
Mhm.
and not talk about it and
Mhm.
be normal.
Well, it really does make a difference when you have. It's just not the same to have someone who is married, whether happily or not, now, like, I'm divorced, it's just a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
And whether or not you guys drink too much, or, you know, like, that's all a process. All of you are progressing,
Right.
through
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah.
You're
Absolutely.
trying to figure shit out.
Yeah.
And it's so important to have someone, because like my girlfriends now, like, I absolutely relate to everything that they go through.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I get it. I mean, not everything, because some of you are married and blended, and I don't know that. I have opinions, but I don't know. But, you know, the first stages in dating and figuring out kids, like that, we get it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that I feel like has bonded us, that is strong, and it's really beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. But I need to plug the UnWed too. It's been great.
I paid him to do this part,
she
guys.
did
Don't
not.
worry. I gave him whiskey.
She did. It's just been awesome to be a part of this group who honestly just I feel supported and almost loved, and like we're all doing it together.
Right? But we really are. That's the thing.
I know, yeah. And there's some awful things that some of the folks have to go through, and my heart goes out to you, and I'm glad we're all part of the group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and some of those, you just relate because you get it, right?
Yeah.
You may be in a different phase, but I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Find friends. That's the third tip.
Yes.
Support group. I know it's hard. You're gonna have to go to your comfort zone, people. That's.
It is.
At the end of the day, people aren't just gonna like flock to you.
Yeah.
You really gonna have to go seek out new friends. And luckily, we have tools now. We have online. We have. I mean, I think half the dating apps now, where you can choose the other sex, you can choose to find friends, right? Like, part of it is putting yourself out there, and that will take time, and you'll know when you're ready.
Yeah.
But it does help. Okay, so the fourth tip is the most, well, we'll see. So the fourth tip that I have is don't date, with a whole bunch of asterisks after it. Because I think in a perfect world, the perfect scenario would be not to date that first year, right?
Yes, I completely agree.
I think most people on paper would agree. Yeah. And I know that that is hard.
It is.
A lot of us were in marriages for years. A lot of us had that companionship really since we were young, right? Really the only companion that we've had.
Right.
And now all of a sudden we're thrown into the situation where we're lonely, we're miserable, we're sad, we're vulnerable. We're horny, absolutely. And we don't know what to do with that.
Right.
Partly because we never had the tools to begin with, and partly because we're just disasters now, right? But I didn't date that first year because I knew that coming out of my marriage, I knew that if I found someone who gave me things that my ex didn't, that I could very quickly latch on to that person, regardless of whether it was a better situation or not, right? It's just a little bit different.
Right.
And I mean, I just, for whatever reason, I was aware enough of that kept me, and I was super intimidated. I mean, I really had never dated. And so the thought of like going on a date with someone scared the shit out of me.
Right.
Which is why I had my gay boys that I love. Because they'll tell you you're beautiful and they don't want anything to do with your vagina. So it's great, you know? But, okay, so what about you?
So I did date. I got on the apps, right? The Tinder and the Bumble.
How soon after?
Probably a couple months.
Okay.
But I would just look. And then we would chat a little bit, and then it would just die.
Okay.
Boring or something, or just we
Okay.
could tell it
Things
wasn't
before,
going there.
yeah.
And to kind of go back to what you were saying before, it's funny because I'm a people pleaser, right?
Yeah.
I'm getting better. But I went on like 4 dates with this woman. Just very friendly and fun and great to be with. But I wasn't there. I couldn't be there, and it really pissed her off. She called me an asshole, and I could count on one hand how many times I've been called an asshole.
I was gonna say he's not really an asshole.
Yeah. So like I was like, oh, I gotta stop. This is not fair to her. So that's when I took a step back.
Okay.
And haven't really dated since.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm still on the apps, and I don't put enough into it. And I should really get off.
Yeah.
But it's not fair. But
yeah.
when you're lonely, at least
For
gives
sure.
you some sort of hope or connection that hey, maybe I'll go on a date and have fun. And
I might actually find someone.
Yeah.
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 No, I get that.
Yep.
Yeah. I know it's hard. So the thing is, I have rules now, right? I really don't want to date someone who has not been divorced a year. I definitely don't want to date someone who is not yet divorced. That's a whole different topic, but that happens a lot. And yet, I feel like, I mean, we're all in different stages, and that can't be a hard, fast rule. But in general, you know, I mean, this is a tricky subject. But I feel like if you are aware enough, that give yourself that time to heal, because that first year is so full of emotion and change and adjustment, that then also throwing in a new romantic relationship into that, a lot of times we just aren't ready. As lonely and as miserable as we feel, and we think that that is what's going to give us, that's going to fill that void, right? Yeah. Another person is going to make me feel whole again. That is actually not the case. Right. And while I would never, there's no like blame or fault for people that date before that year, but I just think as a general rule, it's a good idea to take time to figure your shit out.
Very helpful, yes. And we were talking earlier about, like, when I was going to therapy, I'd walk into a room and my therapist would be like, you're going to find the woman just like your ex, because that's what you're attracted to. We all have our types. Yeah. And I know she's not healthy for me, because we've had these negative situations. Yeah. But get healthy so I can walk in that room and recognize that and say, that's not what I want. Right. I want something healthier. Time. But it takes at least a year-ish.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, but I also think it's a two-edged sword, because on one hand we should wait and figure ourselves out, but I also firmly believe that it takes dating and trial and error to figure our shit out. So it's like a hard balance to find, because I can do as much work on myself as I can alone, but some of my issues I can't address unless I'm in a relationship, you know? Yeah. So it's kind of it's a toss up.
It is.
But I don't think you're going to lose by waiting and figuring out as much, right? Again, going back to figuring out your opinions. What are your likes and dislikes? What do you like to do? Because then you'll find someone who, we're not looking for perfection, but we are looking for compatibility. Yes. And until we know who we are, how are we supposed to find someone that is compatible with us?
Absolutely true. 100% agree with you. Mm-hmm. And that year rule is really great, because I'm a year into it now, and the fog's starting to lift. It really is. Like, I'm starting to feel myself again. I'm starting to drink less and be healthier and start at the gym again and be happy. Like, I started making jokes at work again. It's been kind of cool. Right. And
that's good. Nice. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. Yeah. Okay. So, our 4 tips. Grieve it out. Give yourself time to heal. Go to therapy if you want, read books, but give yourself that time. Second, get to know who you are. That's a process, but important. Yes. Third, find friends, support, community. Vital. Fourth, don't date for that first year, asterisk. You gotta figure that one out, but as a general rule, it's probably good to start with. Just don't date that first year. We're just not ready. Yeah. Do yourself the favor to give you a year to heal. Yes. And not get wrapped up and lost in another relationship again. Amen. Okay. Yeah. So, thank you for joining us for the In Bed with the UnWed. We'll be here again. Thank you, Ryan.
No, thank you for having me. It was fun.
Awesome.
Thanks for the scotch.
Totally. That's part of the deal.
Yes.
See you next time.